How did that get then to start in Alma Mater in 2008? How did that come to be?
Yeah. So, I my late grandmother unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, but she loved this story. She was sort of an Ohio State hoarder. Like her basement, she had an entire room just like with Ohio State things with like the tags still on.
Really?
And it really was literally one night after a game. I was with my boyfriend, who's now my husband, with our friends, and it just came to me like I'm looking around and everyone's got t-shirts and sweatshirts on. And she had just given me a cool, really cool vintage Ohio State sweater. And I was like, this is a really sleepy industry. And I bet a lot of people would wear sweaters, like vintage looking sweaters. And it was an aha moment, which I know is so cliche, but that's kind of the genesis of all my business ideas. It's just like, I have a thought, and that's a really good business idea. I had a friend who was an artist. She was just a graphic designer. She didn't work in fashion. And I said, hey, Molly, I have these ideas. Like, can you help me sketch them out? Because like I couldn't sketch or anything like that. And we sketched out a few ideas. I just told her exactly what I had in mind. I did a little bit of research. I was a history major, so not hard for me to kind of go back and look at what cheerleaders wore in like the 90s just to try to get a vintage flair. And so we came up with like 4 or 5 designs. And yeah, I started sourcing. I just went, this was, Alibaba was around. I can't really testify
Yeah,
like how new it was, but it was around and I used it to source. And the first factory I found, I like the rest is history. I just, by God's grace, like got it on the first try. They were great partners.
really? Back in the
Yeah.
day, it was wild. That was still like, I mean, this
Wow.
is almost 20 years ago. It's a
Now,
totally different industry, yeah.
yeah, not to say that we didn't go through like multiple design iterations, but they were smaller like me and they wanted to grow with me. And so it ended up being a very special relationship and protection, honestly, a great protection for when people started to come in and try to, kind of steal the concepts. I even had one competitor actually try to steal my factory. And they were
Really?
loyal to me. They were loyal to me, yeah. So, yeah, that was
That's
the
awesome.
genesis of it. It really my grandmother inspired it. I still have the vintage Ohio State sweater, and I really should, like, hold up both, like, the vintage and then the new one.
That
She
was
was
awesome
my
to hear.
inspiration. Yeah.
That's a really, really cute story. So how does it okay,
Mhm.
I wanna because we're starting right now also in an
Mhm.
e-commerce brand as well. So I wanna know the sourcing process, if you still remember some of the stuff, and what are the things that stuck out to you during that process that were like, "Wow, I didn't expect that." Did you fly to China?
You know what? I never did. Never once did I visit the factory, anything like that. I wasn't required. I think some of the larger licensees were required to like go in and inspect their factories just to make sure everything was, up to par and like
No
ethical,
child
like
labor.
manufacturing. Yeah, yeah. But I was a smaller licensee, so we were able to employ like third parties to help with that. So I never did. I never did. I think mostly because I was a young mom. So I was balancing being a mom and growing the business. And it's expensive to travel to China. And I'm like, I really operated until I was able to bring on investors. I operated on a shoestring budget. And most importantly, they were just reliable. They were like unbelievable people. So if you've sourced in China or anywhere across the world, but particularly in China, they try to make it as easy as possible for us who don't speak Chinese. So they all take on American names. So Gary he was my friend. He was my source. His name's Gary. And yeah, that's who I worked with for 12 years. And so is there anything that came unexpected? Well, yeah, I mean, I have more than one. I would say, kind of going back to the story about finding out that a company had gone straight to my factory with my designs and tried to manufacture with them. I think a lot of, and I mean, I'm sure it's a common story that maybe the company did do that behind their client's back, but not my factory. They came to me and they were loyal to me. They were honest with me. And I was able to go to that company and say, hey, I know what you guys are up to, cut it out. And so that was surprising to me in a very positive way. And I would say to
Yeah.
any of your listeners who maybe source in China or source anywhere, and they're worried about not having the loyalty of their sourcing partner, which is a real worry that, and you should have protections in place. My recommendation again would be to find a factory on the smaller end because again, they tend to be more loyal. They take their reputations very seriously and they're interested in growing with you. Your growth is their growth. And so they're not going to do anything to impede that. And I sort of stumbled on, a really good sourcing partner and not knowing what I was doing at the time. I did the right thing, which was employed a smaller firm. They were very patient with me on, I would get samples and I want to change this and I want to change this. They did everything I asked.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of surprisingly good things. Now, I have sourced for other companies that I've had in China and I've not had great experiences. I built a mold and okay, I'm not going to move forward with you as a sourcing partner, but the mold is mine, transfer it to the new, and he won't transfer it to the new company. And I think that's kind of common.
Ah, okay.
And so, but for me, who had such a positive experience in China, that was like surprising to me. I'm like, what? Like,
Why are you so
uh,
rude?
very positive to like not so positive. But maybe it's because they were different in different industries. But yeah, I mean, I think that I would say the most surprising thing is just how positive the experience was for me.
What were the lead times on the t-shirts, remember, when you ordered anything?
Oh, like 60 days. And we didn't do
Okay.
teas. We did knits. But again,
It's
I had a factory who specialized in knits, right? So I didn't go to a tea factory and say, "Hey, build this from scratch with me." But yeah, like I would have samples within 30 days. I would have orders, even some of my largest orders, I would have within 60 to 90 days. Now, there wasn't war going on, like a lot of uncertainties back then. Things were pretty stable on the seas, but it was reliable and also stressful because in collegiate apparel, everything has to be approved by the licensor, right? So you can't get a shipment in where the logo's off or the color is off or it looks different than what you submitted for approval, right? It was a really stressful. Don't go into a collegiate. Anyone who's listening, please don't. It's really complex business. It's not like just ordering teas. And so it was important that the integrity and the quality was there, right? And sure, we had snafus like here and there, where we'd say, hey, we got to, fix this or fix the fitting on this. But generally they did a tremendous job for me within a reasonable.
how did you get these licenses, right? Because if it's like so complicated, you said like just the process of once you have the product, but like even getting them, how did you get your first one and then get the next? Because I'm assuming once you have one, it's easier, but if you have none, it's very hard.
You're pretty spot on there. Yeah. Honestly, when I started the business, I was really passionate about producing Ohio State gear because that was my school. Unfortunately for me, that was literally the hardest license to get in the industry, the hardest and most valuable. And, I was like, hey, that's my alma mater. That's why I want it. Put aside that it's very valuable, very lucrative. So, and I knew I would not get Ohio State right away. It's too competitive of an industry. But I thought if I can build momentum, maybe with some smaller schools, that will snowball. So I actually so a lot of schools, it may have changed now, but back then, most of the schools, but not all, employed like a third party company to manage all of their licensing. They kind of outsourced it. So they were like these licensing outfits, and that's who we would interface with, not directly the school, but a couple of schools still had licensing in house. So those were the schools I went to. So the first I went to was University of Iowa, and I got that one right away. I went to Michigan State. I got that one right away. Those were in house, and those are, you know, reputable
Michigan
Division 1
State, yes.
schools. Yeah, yeah. Started producing for them. Everyone loved the product. The teams within the licensing department just absolutely loved our designs because they were so novel, they were so different, and they were quality. They weren't just like cheap tees and sweats, right? And most importantly, they were a little more expensive. I mean, I got to give them a cut of everything I sell. So they're making more off of an $80 sweater than tees, right? So if it can, if the products had legs, it was financially adding to their department. So there was a lot of aspects working for us. And then it really just snowballed from there. A really important step that I took was hiring someone who was very, very well versed in licensing. So once I got a couple, then I went to the third party outfits and I got a few more and I got a few more. Then I hired someone full time who just managed it, would lobby maybe some of the schools who were being a little more difficult, things like that. And once I had those under my belt, a healthy handful under my belt, I went and applied to Ohio State and we got it. And that was a moment, obviously, that was special for me, but also critical to the business. We were raising cash. I had self-funded it a little bit up to this point. Then I had some family money, some family investors come on. And then once we got Ohio State, we had really had the goods to go to real investors and say, we have something here that has legs, right? Because Ohio State does not give licenses to just anyone. It's a very, very select, I would guess it's still a very select small group. And I mean, I'm competing against Nike. I'm competing against, you know, well, there's a couple of companies that do the larger generic tees and sweatshirts and, knickknacks and all of these very, very large licensees who have added millions to their coffers and sales. And so, I mean, it was intimidating. I'm like, who am I? Like, to think that I can compete with Nike. But again, we had a different enough product that allowed us to enter as like a small licensee. So yeah, and we were the kind of the only one of ours at the time. I think we definitely started a trend for like more fashionable collegiate apparel, which is definitely still going on today.
H How many years did it actually take you to get Ohio State? Like, what was like the first one was relatively fast, but then till you say, I got Ohio State, and once I got Ohio State, everything was rolling. Also, I'm surprised that Michigan State, which is also like a big school and very competitive with Ohio State. So I'm like, that was relatively easy.
Well, they at the time, she's not there anymore, but they had a very, very forward thinking, progressive licensing director, very well respected. She was younger and she just got it. She just got it. She's like, yeah, this is going to sell. So kudos to that licensing director because she took her position very seriously and didn't just run us through an algorithm, like looked at the product and thought, okay, this is something that would well represent our school. Um, so from the inception of the company to getting the license for Ohio State, I think it was at least like 4 years, but that includes, I'm including product development and all of that, which took like a year. And then maybe the following year we got Iowa and Michigan State and we sold a little bit there. And then we were investing in some marketing and, there's a lot of moving parts where, um, trying to think sales strategies, right? With a business as complex as collegiate apparel or commodities, it's we weren't an e-commerce business. We weren't a D2C business. We were B2B. We wanted to do wholesale just because logistically it was so much easier for us. Um, because the design process and the production process was so complex, and then we're worrying about licensing and meeting our quotas for the schools, it just felt like investing in D2C and marketing and all that comes along with that was just too much for us. Like, could it have grown into that? Maybe, but that was just like never my goal.
Uh,
So we were just really focused on, selling to as many small customers as we could so that we could go to an Amazon and say, hey, it's performed well in market. We think we can replicate this on your platform.
Was Instagram then already a thing, or when did Instagram actually became a thing? Because you started it 2008. Instagram was Yeah. 2009.
Instagram was a thing for sure. Really towards the end, but like right before I exited, we did a little bit of Instagram and social media, but it just wasn't a big part of our
Yeah,
You
for
know,
B2B, of course, yeah.
yeah, if we did a photo shoot, it was like for our catalog that we would send along to buyers and things like that. So,
So you exited your position and you sold the company or you just left the business? You're like, okay, I want to be out. Please buy me out. What was that like? And can you walk us through the process?
yeah, we had so I had private investors on board, and when we took we took the next step to growing the business, and it was kind of at the peak of like when we had lots of licenses. We had more Amazon orders from our buyer for current styles, for new styles that like we could handle. It was kind of growing too fast is what it felt like, really. And so I went to my investors and I said, we need more money. We got to bring on big money. Collegiate apparel, licensed apparel, when you're at that level of licensing, it's very, very, you need tons of capital. You need like tech capital, millions. And
Mhm.
so, because just the volume is so high and there's so many moving parts, you need it fully staffed. Like it becomes very, very, very complex. Absolute highest respect for the companies who are in that space and are turning a profit and are running a well-oiled operation because it gets so just intertwined and tangled and complex. So I went to my investors. I said, we need more money. And they said, well, we have banking relationships. Like, let's go take out an SBA loan. So we did that. And the short of it is like that just it wasn't enough. And it wasn't the right model for us because it was just a small local bank that really had no insight into like the complexities of the business. So suddenly I'm trying to grow the business and fill orders, and I'm keeping the bank happy, and I'm having to constantly update them, and like it just wasn't a good financing fit. So it wasn't like a contentious like I'm walking away, but my partners and I agreed that I didn't want to take on additional risk like from a banking perspective. And honestly, I wasn't built for like running the business at the stage that it was. Like I just wasn't qualified. And so we agreed to I agreed to exit, and they brought on someone else to run it. And then honestly, it's kind of sad. I don't think they really ever did anything with it. So
Uh,
it's still there. I think there's assets still there. I don't really know. But at that point, it was no hard feelings because I was ready to move on. Like I was ready to
that was
do
my next
something.
question. Because
I
I'm
was
like, after 10 years, I'm like, maybe it feels like a kid that is growing and you're like ready to let it go, or you're still like, oh no, this is still my baby. I don't want to let go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important for all founders is to know when to walk away, know what your limitations are, know when you're maybe starting to become a liability rather than a value to the company. And not to say, I think that's pretty harsh to say about myself, but I just thought, especially if I was growing tired of where we were at, dating complexities, raising more capital, and then just like and managing the business too. And my investors were very high net worth, and they were, have established companies. Like they were just better to handle it than me. So I was fine to walk away with like what I made in the business. And if they chose to grow it or not grow it, I was kind of divorced from the concept at that point. I had moved on to, in my mind, another product that I had been working on like behind the scenes.
So Nice. what was the new product that you were already excited and working on?
Well, thank you for bringing that up because the I'm in the fight of my life for taking back this product that I created, which
Tell
is
us
no
more. Tell us more. We need to
longer
know
alive.
everything now.
And I'm in litigation right now trying to get that back. And as I'm going through that process, which is going on 3 years now, I thought to
Wow.
myself, what how can I the legal process is arduous, it's long, it's dramatic at times, it's slow at times. I thought, well, how can I spend this time positively? Because I do have a new business that I want to start, but I really need this legal drama to wrap up before I can even be in the right mind space to move on. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm out here advocating for entrepreneurs. giving them any advice from my successes and my failures and just trying to spend this time positively. So that's kind of my disclaimer. So I created a disposable lid for kids that I was going to sell to restaurants. At the time that I designed it, I had a 2-year old, I had a 5-year old and a 2-year old, and I was just really tired of going out to eat. They want the kids' meal, they want everything that comes along with that. And when they get the cup and the straw, they tip it up like they do at home because they have a cup at home. And they knock it over and it spills and it's dramatic. So I thought, what can I create that's like disposable, that's affordable for restaurants to provide to kids? So I designed this lid that it's just a plastic polypropylene lid. It has a sip spout for kids. It has a straw option for older kids. The most novel part of the design is just around the rim and the way that it affixes to the cup. If you knock it over, the lid doesn't pop off. If you knock it over, it doesn't spill. As I always do my research, because I don't steal ideas, I don't steal other people's concepts. My concepts are my own. And so I just wanted to make sure before I went down this road, because I thought, wow, this is really a $1 billion idea because the volume is so high in
Oh,
plastics.
yeah.
And I'm not a mom in my garage, like doing this as a hobby. I'm in it to make money. And so I, you know, that's why I go after the industries that I do. They're maybe a little sleepy, maybe they're a little antiquated, but most importantly, there's high volume there. So, and my product solved a problem. I did research. I could find nothing globally at all, not one thing. And we have internet, but like we can find this stuff if it's there. So I designed it. I hired an engineer local to me, helped me make the prototype, hired another engineer to perfect it, and went to file for a patent design. And in fact, my attorney said, you're never going to get a design patent for this. It's too common. And I said, no, it's not. It's not common and it doesn't exist. She did not think I would get it. Well, sure enough, we did get it. She was shocked. Anyway, I had finalized the design, brought on an investor, very, very high net worth individual that made his money in distribution. So he not only brought cash to the table, but he also brought massive expertise on distribution of
How
large
did you
volume.
find him? How did you
Um,
find him?
he was in my personal network. In right out of college, I worked in politics before I started my first business, and I worked in fundraising. And so I met that actually is what inspired me to be a business owner, because I met all of these fascinating people who literally could pass for the plumber down the street and are self-made, like through hard work and grit. Like I loved it. And I made friends with some.
Inspiring.
And so it was like, yeah, through that network, through that circle, that's how I found him and took him my product. He loved it. He's like, all day long, I see how this could have wheels. And so brought him on as an investor. We were off to the races, had my finalized product. The short of the story is I communicated multiple times in multiple kind of avenues with a domestic manufacturer here in America about producing my product. And within 3 months, they had a copycat product in market as a result of me reaching out to them with my stuff.
But you had a patent. How does that not?
That doesn't matter. Honestly, if you have any listeners who are inventors, patents are only a partial protection. A couple reasons why. Design patents they just only protect how your product looks. So if a company wants to knock you off, they can tweak the design a little and you have no patent case. It would be a complete waste of money trying to pursue. Number one. There's a stronger protection in a utility patent, and a utility patent protects how your product functions, which is way different and much more powerful. My patent attorney, for the second time, said, you'll never get a utility patent. They're expensive. Don't even try. So I didn't. And my investor agreed, and he was cutting the checks. So I'm like, I don't agree, but okay, fine. We won't get a utility patent. Well, the company that with the copycat product went and got a utility patent. So now,
Oh,
even if I wanted to, I would be infringing on my own design if I brought this product to market, because now they have a utility patent, which is much more powerful. When we discovered the copycat product, my investor backed out. I was out of business overnight. And, we sold our house. We liquidated everything to put into this concept, this lid. And so when my investor backed out, I was essentially out of business. I talked to some attorneys. The story gets worse. I talked to multiple attorneys. They're like,
The
you really,
drama.
yeah, you
Get the
really don't
tea. Get the tea.
get the tea.
Oh.
Yeah. It's almost like a movie. The multiple attorneys. You don't have a patent case. You don't have a patent case. Well, once I discovered 2 years later that the corporation had gotten the utility patent, I was up in arms. I just thought that is so wrong. How that was just taken out from under me, stolen from me is my allegation, right? And swiped, gone like that overnight. And who am I to fight these? By the way, the company is a $6 billion corporation. This is not a mom and
Damn.
pop factory down the street. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was so up in arms. I had talked to so many attorneys who said, like, you don't have a case. So my last ditch effort was like, I drafted an open letter to the corporation and just as eloquently as I possibly could said, I created this and it was taken. And I know it was taken. And you're out there, you're private equity backed, you're in your marketing materials and your annual report, you're saying we support women in business. Like, you don't. Like, this was swiped from me. And so I got a response from one of their lawyers and said, we take this very seriously. Like, we'll investigate this. Not okay behavior. A couple weeks go by, I never hear anything back. I kind of follow up with them. In the meantime, I finally hired an attorney who said, well, you may not have a patent case, but you could have a trade secret case. You could have a breach of contract case, like unjust enrichment, all these claims that I like wasn't even familiar with. And
Mhm.
so I hired these two attorneys. And at this point, I was dangerously close to my statute of limitations. Like, I had 8 months to
Uh,
file a lawsuit if I wanted when I
how long is
hired
it?
these
4 years? 3 years?
4 years in
Okay.
Ohio. So dangerously close. Hired these two attorneys. One was a partner, one was an associate on the case. Because we're in litigation, I'm going to be careful about what I say, and I'm going to limit it to just anything that's out there in the public because the case has been reported on and the claims you can publicly
Be
access them.
vague. Be vague. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. So I just was very uncomfortable with the representation for the duration of it. Disagreed a lot. We disagreed a lot on strategy. We disagreed a lot on facts of the case. We disagreed a lot on claims, but we kind of kept representing me. I retained them in October. In April, I was terminated by the law firm as a client with no explanation. You're terminated.
This year or in 2023?
This was 2023.
Okay. Okay.
And so I was really bummed. I was like shocked and I felt abandoned because at this point it was April and I had only until July to file a lawsuit. So now I had to get a whole new attorney, fill them on the case. I already spent tens of thousands of dollars with them. Now I have to and my pockets aren't that deep. I'm not, so I was in distress. I found an attorney in Boston. He said, I'm really interested in this case. For full disclosure, would love to talk to the partner on your case, just get the details. I'm like, yeah, here's his name, here's his number. And I get an email an hour later that the partner on my case had quit the law firm and went to the law firm that was representing the corporation.
Oh.
So naturally, I'm thinking, was I represented this entire time or was I tricked this entire time? So,
And you can sue for that as well?
so my product was taken by a corporation. My case was taken by a lawyer, all for their advantage and to my disadvantage. And so about a month later, I filed a suit pro se. So I'm in litigation against, and I have an attorney now, but I'm in litigation against the corporation. I'm in litigation against my former attorney, my former law firm, and the law firm that represents the corporation. This is going on 3 years. So,
That is crazy.
and
How does
all
a
because,
process like this look like? Sorry, I'm very curious because 3 years, that's a long, long time. Is it every 8 months a case or how can I imagine this? And how does this entire look like? Yeah.
well, I have two cases. I have one case in Chicago and I have one case in Colorado. The case in Chicago has been quite dramatic. We've been through a number of judges. The very first judge recused herself after 6 months being on the case. So that felt like 6 months wasted. They brought a new judge on, and the new judge came on. The defendants filed a motion to dismiss. The new judge did not rule on it for 15 or 18 months. It just sat there pending. Then he threw out the case. And so now we just argued in front of the appellate court in January. So at the time that I filed, I was pro se. The case, like I said, I have an attorney now who argued my appeal, and we're very confident that the appeal will go our way, because really, a big part of this is just discovery. I want to know what happened from the beginning, right? I'm entitled to that. So unfortunately, that is in the hands of the legal system, which can be just very, very long, and unpredictable. They're really talented at dragging these things out.
Well, honestly, they have infinite money, so they can wait this out for 10 years and they can just wait out till you don't make it's a smart strategy, to be
Yeah,
honest. But
yeah, that's what pick with, and so going back to the beginning of me saying, like, what can I do positively with this time, right? Well, first of all, any of your listeners who maybe they want to start a business, or they have started a business, or they have experienced any level of corporate piracy, because for every one of me who fights, there's thousands that just go away because they're like, there's nothing I can do. And by the way, when you start a business, you're already very, very, very self-conscious, and like no business owner goes into it like, I got this. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I think twice about my capabilities. And so, I want, if I can change a little part of the corporate ecosystem where we're not doing this to creators, it's not right. I want to be an advocate for that. And I also just want to be an advocate for anyone who has experienced something like this. By the way, not even in business, it could just be in life. It could be in life. Giving up, is not your only option. And I'm definitely, persistence is a real thing. And if I can like affect one corporation or one individual, like, I'm happy about it. It's already daunting enough for startups.
my question, the ones that the other ones who took the design, or the other company, or that is now producing it as well, have they come out with the product, and how much is it actually generating? Because you said it's a billion-dollar company. Are they? Is it? Do they? Did they go with the same strategy, or did they not just have it on their shelf?
Well, I should show you, the marketing materials are like identical to mine. And by the way, my marketing materials were internal at that time. Like, they look almost exactly alike. It's crazy. No, they're in market with it. We don't know what their sales are. They're a private company, so it's hard to say, but their reach is global. I'm sure it's notable. And, corporations sometimes engage in this behavior not only to sell the product, just to stop you from selling your product and competing with their products. So I'm not privy to that. Obviously, no one really is unless you're with the company, but I know that they're out there selling it. I know that for sure.
So how did she keep staying positive in the entire time? How does it? What gave you another mission? Is the mission the fight? Or even if it is, how do you stay energetic during that time? Because
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
a couple things. Listen, my family, my husband, my children support everything. I do everything for them. And so I'm fighting for them on top of myself. You can mess with me all day long. You can't mess with my family. And so it's deeply personal to me. Like, the truth just matters, and the truth is so powerful. And the truth always rises to the top, right? I mean, the truth is always going to be exposed somehow. And I think that that's what keeps me positive. I don't feel like I'm speculating. I'm not nuts. I know exactly what happened, and I'm a fair person. I just passionate about being fair. On top of that, us as entrepreneurs, we're just nuts in that way. We are persistent,
well,
right?
we definitely have something wrong in our heads. I got an idea.
No, yeah.
It must be
When
crazy enough to start this.
when I meet people, I'm like, I have a disease. It's called entrepreneurism. Because I can't stop wanting to like create. and I know, and I think, the most important thing, and when you're saying like, how do you stay positive? Like, thankfully, I have a family who supports, you know, what I do. A couple things. I made something that someone wanted, right? Whether it was taken properly or not, I made something that
I
someone
know.
that big wanted. And I can do that again. I've done it time and time again. So I'm like, I just get excited about what I'm going to do next, right? And not allowing this horrible situation to stop me from being me is so important. And as you know, in any phase of our business, we have no choice but to turn anything negative that's going on in our business that day into a positive. Otherwise, you're just out of business. Then you're just out of you know what I mean? We
You're
have to do
depressed. You're out of business. Yeah, you just yeah. You have to like it's
in
a
our
roller coaster, but
DNA.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a roller coaster. Be like, fuck yeah, it's down. You know what? But hey, that means there's going to go up now. I'm at the
Yeah.
lowest. That's what it is exactly. And
Yeah.
I love what
I
you
mean,
said
that's
earlier
where the
about the
charm is. That's what's
yeah, exactly.
charming, right?
The owning is so cool that what you said, like there was something you created something so valuable and so important that someone went to the length of this to actually do this. Like irrelevant of what the result will be. It's just like you had this, you patented it, and you went through all this, and then this happened. It's just like, wow, crazy. That means there must be such a confidence boost because look, I had this once. I noticed this because at the end of the day, it's not about the idea. It's also about the pattern. Look, you had that pattern recognition already with the with the t-shirts, with the sweaters that you had, and then you did it now with the sippy cups, with the cups with the lids. And I'm like, what's the next thing that you're gonna notice? I'm like, look, I noticed it. This is annoying me in my life. There must be millions of this. This is. Do you have something like that already, or is it still in stealth mode?
Do I have something? What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've always been passionate. At this point, I'm not like crazy old, but I am starting to think like, what's going to be my legacy business? What am I going to do until I'm old? I'm kind of in that phase of my entrepreneurial journey. Everyone has different journeys. Everyone has different styles. I have a friend who's an amazing creator and she likes to just create things and then sell it and move on to the next. I'd kind of like to build something generational at this point. So I've always been if I'm doing a few things. I started a production company and I went back to community college here in Denver to study writing and directing. Always been a writer, always been interested in film and television. In fact, I don't know why I didn't go into that area in school. Had some kind of demented idea that I would go to law school and majored in history. And I took one pre-law class and I was like, no, boring. But so now I'm studying writing and directing. I wrote a series loosely based on my experience as a female entrepreneur that I would love to produce. I have unscripted concepts that I want to produce. I'm writing a book. I will never, ever, if I'm 99, use the word memoir. I can't stand that
I
term.
like that name. I don't know why I like it.
That seems so egotistical, but my attorneys are like, literally, your story is like a movie. And I'm like, I know it's crazy. Just the drama that I'm going through now. So thinking about writing a fictional book loosely based on this and maybe adapting that to a screenplay one day.
My
I love,
screenplay.
yeah, well, I think my direction in film and television are like, I like real world stories. I like stories where good prevails. I like stories where underdogs prevail. That's just, people
This
go in,
this entrepreneurial spirit. Like in the end,
yeah.
we are all the underdogs and we gotta prevail somehow. So yes, I totally
Well,
get it.
in your experiences as entrepreneurs, we have so much to give in our failures and our pain that people can learn on. And I think there's so many ways to communicate that. And for me, it's going to be like film and TV. And and I'm going to be the 12 billion person on the planet that's going to start a podcast.
Oh, welcome. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. It's probably but for me, it's not a business venture, it's just therapeutic, I think, and just giving back. The concept is called Brain on Loan, and it's basically me just loaning my brain to entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs, anyone who might be going through a difficult time in their life. Would you agree, as entrepreneurs, that we don't get overwhelmed easily, right? Like,
Yes,
over
the
small
ones
things.
that the thing is, I think that I would to differentiate there. I would say true entrepreneurs don't get overwhelmed easily, and the ones who do get overwhelmed easily might not be the right fit to start a company. Because the problem is, if you get over, because as an entrepreneur, always there's a fire going on left and right. You need to focus on which
Yes.
you're gonna like uh, extinguish first. And I think that's very, very important. And that's a skill that people have to learn. And if you're not willing or you can't tolerate this might not be something for
It's
you.
gonna be super hard to be successful if you can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
agree.
it's to literally be willing, able, wanting to endure that pain, knowing you're gonna learn from it. And there's no slam on anyone who's not built that way, but we just can give back in so many ways. We can turn our pain into someone else's progress. And I'll give you an example. Like, I went back to Ohio to help my younger sister plan her wedding, which was becoming very overwhelming to her, to the point where she just couldn't function, just couldn't be happy about being engaged. And I said, and she was already on the fence about having like a big affair. So I said, just get married this weekend. My dad has a beautiful backyard. Short of it is I planned a wedding in 2 days. It was a small affair. I officiated it.
Nice.
I planned it, and then I cooked for everyone after. We wear a lot of
Love it.
hats, right? I mean, and everyone's like,
We're
how do you
used to
do?
that.
I don't know. I don't. I just you do it. You execute. And so if there's any positive experience or painful experience that I can help someone else with for free, by the way, I don't like these companies who are like, for $2,000, you buy this package and we'll show you how to start a business and we'll show you how to
Uh,
succeed. That's so not even realistic.
well, their business is creating is to selling the packages. Like every time there's a course, the guy is like, "This is how I made $10,000 in 2 days." It's like, why are you selling me this course? If you made 10,000 bucks in 2 days, you don't have to sell me that course for $500.
It's a racket. And I actually don't listen to podcasts that are of super successful people because unless it's layers and layers and layers of failures, then you get something out of it. But like those one offs where, yeah, I made 10 grand like on TikTok, I'm not
Oh
into
yeah.
that. And it's just not reality. And for any entrepreneur or someone who wants to become an entrepreneur to like get tricked by that. I'm not into that. So, we have a website where anyone can go and submit a question and we'll read it on air and we'll answer it and we'll walk them through it. It sounds silly, but like when I was back in Ohio, this is a great example. I have an aunt who's starting a flower business. I want to name it this, but oh, someone already has that name. I can't, I said, you can still name your company that. You can't take their logo. You can have the same name. She's like, what? What? Like little things like that, you know, people just don't know. They don't even know where to begin. And I'm all about starting a business, financial freedom. Would love to help anyone out there who's going through something or thinking about doing it or going through something in their life.
Coming
What's the
back
name?
to
The mindset thing.
oh,
How do you relate to normal people? Because I see myself sometimes struggling to relate to this. I'm like, because as an entrepreneur, you wear so many hats and people get overwhelmed so quickly, especially nowadays. I feel like as our generation or younger, that for me, sometimes it's hard to relate to that kind of concept. How do you mentally bridge that gap to relate better to
That's a
these
great
people?
question. That's a really great question because early on in my entrepreneurial journey, when I was young, you'd get real excited about like any win that you had that day. And I'd like talk to my dad about it or talk to my friends about it. And like they're just like, and my husband, who's seriously one of the wisest people I've known, he's just like, they're not like you and they're not going to give you what you need in feedback. And they're not being mean. They just don't know. You're not on the same wavelength. And I'm like, that's so right. So, number one, I stopped talking to non-entrepreneurs about my business. I don't touch on it. If they ask, how's it going? It's going great. What's new with you? And everyone is kind of, first of all, if you want valuable relationships, in my opinion, you're a really good listener. People love to talk. They love to talk about themselves. They love to talk about what they're going through. They love to talk about their wins and their losses and successes and their struggles. And so what I do is I really, really engage on what's going on with them, right? Then I kind of dig into sort of my entrepreneurial brain and how can I fix their struggle, right? My kid got a C on her math test and we studied for so long, and I'll just go right into like, can I help? What advice can I give you to turn that around? And 99% of the time, they're so grateful for it. They're like, you know what? You're right. Because we are creative thinkers. We don't take the path of least resistance. It's not how we think. And so I just try to add value to any conversation. And it's a sacrifice. I'm not getting much out of it, right? Other than just the joy of helping someone. And I think that's how, because yeah, I mean, we don't really, if I'm out at my daughter's soccer game, none of those parents are going to want to hear about my new podcast, right? They're going to want to talk about the match next weekend or what's going on in their life. So I
The gossip.
totally, the gossip. So I totally give myself to them as a resource in any way I possibly can. And all the time, they're like so grateful for it. Because the sad thing is like people really don't have, I would say a lot of people to listen, to just listen and give advice and give feedback. And I enjoyed, that's just what gets me through that conversation. If I like the person or not, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's just
Yeah.
the same thing. Just some people don't like advice. They're like,
But that's not an offer. That's not why I offer, right? That's why I always
yeah,
ask, maybe in the gym or wherever somebody asks me something, I'm just like, hey, can I give you some feedback? Do you want to hear feedback? And if they say no, I'm not going to say anything. And if yes, then I'm willing to give it or share it because, like in the end, it's a complete different thing. Or like sometimes just somebody just wants to listen, like that somebody that you listen, and they don't even want you to. They just want to vent, right? So, and then I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything. For example, like most people always ask, yeah, how are you doing? And then everybody says, I'm great. But I think a much better question is what keeps you up at night if you have really want to have a good conversation? Because that's like actually the real thing. Because everybody has that front. And it's like, yeah, everything is going great.
it's
But if you're
routine.
saying what keeps you up at night, it's just like maybe, yes, my daughter had a C minus in the math exam or something like this, right? So it might be a small things and it's easier to get into like over the small talk topic.
For sure. Yo, I mean, you guys hate small talk as much as me, I'm guessing.
I,
I
I
think.
love talking about business. I love talking about business. That just keeps me up. And then like when I go on a date and then I'm just like talking about business and everything, and then they just want to talk about something other than that, it just gets very fast, very
Well, but
weather's
sometimes
nice.
it's not it's not that rare that I'll say, "Here's what I'm up to," and someone will be like, "Oh, tell me more." And I tell them more and they're like, "I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated that you do that. I'm fascinated you have a business. I'm fascinated." So sometimes you will get, you know, people that
Uh,
are like you and they're willing to kind of invest in that conversation. And I never give empty advice. I'll just say like, this is what worked for me, you know, and they can take that or leave it. But, your daughter got a C. I'll work it into an analogy of something that worked for me. So it just doesn't come off as like preachy. It's just like, yeah, I've been there. I've been there too. This is what worked for me. Maybe try it. And sometimes they'll be open to that. Yeah.
yeah, I like it. Amanda, what is the website for your podcast where people can ask questions?
Yeah, it's literally brainonloan.com. And we just have one page. Anything you want to ask, and happy to air it. And hopefully, if you have a question or a concern or a struggle, I wouldn't even say hopefully, I would say it's likely that someone else has something very similar. And so please submit so we can, help each other just get through life.
Amanda,
Love it.
where can people find you? So besides on brainonloan.com, where else can people find you and shoot you questions, connect with you?
Uh, I'm big on LinkedIn. That's where I have a lot, like most of my connections. I'm not like really on social media. I'm on like just kind of privately. But my production company is called Working Girl Productions. You can reach me there too. It's just a landing page really that I'm I've learned from my mistakes and I'm not going to publicize yet any of my projects yet, but no, keep an eye out for Working Girl Productions. We have some really fun concepts that we're looking to produce, have an extremely talented director lined up out of California. Yeah, just when it comes out, make sure you watch it. I'll give the name. The name of the series is Glass Ceiling, and Glass Ceiling follows actually a tech entrepreneur, a woman in the jungle of male dominated tech, right? And she's got a startup and it just follows, it's kind of a dramedy, just follows her personally and professionally in the struggles that she goes through as a female, like battling it out in tech.
Do you already know where you people can watch this? Where is this going to be aired?
No, I mean, listen, we're going to film the pilot. I really want to film
Okay.
the pilot this fall. And then from there, we'll try to sell it probably. So, because it's going to be an expensive production if we do it right. And I want to do it right. So yeah, yeah. So keep an eye out for that as well. But feel free to reach out to me in any way. And by the way, if I do anything important, my husband would agree in this whole experience of podcasting and appearances is that my last name is pronounced Saima, not Sima. Everyone says Sima. And like even judges on my case said like Sima. And we laugh about it. It doesn't bother us at all. But we're like, I told my husband one day, I'm going to let everyone's going to know it's Saima. It's not Sima. So please feel free to reach out to Amanda Saima through any of those outlets.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda.